what will we have out of Seoul? Presumably leaders are going to talk about the progress on financial sector regulation. They're going to trumpet reforms at the IMF, and they'll try and give some reassuring noises on their commitment to economic policy cooperation. There is some progress, and I think it's important that people understand that the process of reaching multilateral agreement is a long, difficult one. There are different views. They need to be talked through. They need to be reconciled. However, when you measure progress against what's needed, one has to be concerned. You first heard those sounds coming out of Toronto, the Toronto Summit, where progress was seen as being, frankly, very limited. If that's the case again in Seoul, and when you look at financial sector reform, financial regulation, I mean, there are concerns for what has been agreed, that the time frame for implementation, a decade, is just too long. There are concerns, some of the other questions, for instance, how do we deal with global banks that are seen as too big to fail? It's been punted. It's not been addressed yet. The question of how do we ensure that we have a financial stability board that is open to all countries and has the analytical strength and the authority to actually make an impact, that remains to be addressed. If you look at the question of IMF reform, there is some little progress, but there are huge questions that remain, both in some of the technical issues which they've addressed, but more fundamentally, what should be the role of the IMF in the future on capital controls, on doing report cards, on the system, not just on countries. And then finally, the whole question of macroeconomic policy coordination. It's nice to have nice words in a communique. I've spent part of my lifetime sort of doing that, precisely that. But unless it's seen that there is a true commitment behind that, they can't take us very far. And what we see going into Seoul is that countries, despite the rhetoric about enhanced policy cooperation, in fact, they're taking unilateral decisions that are shoving the world in a different direction. So I think there will be some progress in Seoul. Leaders will try and show that it's bigger than I think it really is. But the real test will be, do they recognize that themselves, and that there's a lot of work that remains to be done, that there's a lot of work that's going to come out of Seoul to be carried into the summit next year in France. And that is really the challenge the G20 is going to face, and it's going to have to be able to make some progress, some more progress in some of these key questions.